Should you buy or lease a car? That's kind of the forever conversation on what the best option is. On one hand, you have a more expensive monthly payment, but you get to own the car afterward. The other, you can put less down and have a cheaper monthly payment, especially as we see the average new price of a car become pretty expensive. Last year, it was about $46,000. And so you're starting to see more and more people move over to the lease side. But what we're gonna do is break down how the numbers actually work when comparing the two options. So the next time you go out and buy a car, you can make the best decision for you. We'll start with the pros of leasing. And the number one, which I actually think is the biggest pro as well, is that you have a lower monthly payment. And this is because you're not paying any principal back. You're basically borrowing and repaying the difference between a new car and then the price of the car once the lease is over. Now, there's other fees included, but that's basically the gist of it. The other pro, you're driving a car during the most reliable years of the car, right? You're driving a car for the first 3 years. That's huge. And then the final one is if you lease a car through a business, you can typically capture more tax deductions by doing so. The IRS lets you basically capture the depreciation and the financing costs in each monthly payment. Now the cons of leasing a car, I would say the number one is that you always have a car payment. Typically what you get is the amount of time after the loan is paid off, the more and more value you gather out of it. When you're leasing, you don't ever experience that. Two, and this is one that I always felt, is if you drive a lot of miles, leasing can be a challenge because you only get a limited amount of miles. And if you go over those miles, it can be pretty expensive. In some cases, they'll charge you as high as 50 cents for every mile you go over. With a lease, you don't have as much flexibility. So if something happens where you can't afford the lease payment anymore, they make it really expensive and inconvenient to get out of your lease. Now they do have like third-party websites where somebody can buy your lease or take your lease out from you, but it's a pain in the butt and it's a hassle. So I would say that is kind of a challenge as well when it comes to leasing. And then the biggest con when it comes to leasing is you never own the car. You'll never build any equity in it. So you kind of will forever have a car payment. So with the pros and the cons, out of everything we just said in the cons, the one that always stands out for everyone is in the pros, which is the cheaper monthly payment. That's like the one everybody hangs on to. So we're gonna break down the numbers. We're gonna do it with a brand new Toyota Prius. Look, I owned that car at one point. I liked the car, but I have never got more shit for owning a car than I did a Prius. I guess it's like a thing that people hate on. But anyway, we're gonna use this in our example. So for this example, we're gonna have a buy option and a lease option, and we're gonna consider that after 3 years, we're gonna own the car. So we're gonna buy it out of the lease at year 3. So the purchase price on a Toyota Prius right now is $25,650. If we're going to buy it, we'll put down $2,000 and our APR will be 2.49% with a monthly payment of $682. We'll finance for 3 years since we're comparing it to the lease. And let's consider for this example that we'll sell the car after. So resale value will be $18,335. I use a Toyota depreciation calculator to get this number. I know right now we're in a unique time for used cars. They're super expensive, but we're gonna consider a more normal time. On the lease side, we'll put down the same $2,000. Term will be 3 years, and our payment will be $300 a month. So we'll consider the buyback price or resale at $15,769. So if we're buying the car, how much do you have in the deal so far? We have our $2,000 down. We have our monthly payments for 3 years. So that's $682 times 36 will give us $24,552. Plus the down payment, we have a total of $26,552 in the car. Now we're going to look at the lease and buy it out after 3 years. So we have our $2,000 down payment. We have the payments of $300 for 36 months, which is $10,800, plus the $2K is $12,800. Now we also have the buyback price, which is $15,769. So in total, we're $28,569 into the lease. So if we bought the car from the beginning and financed it, we would be into the car for $26,552. Whereas if we leased it and bought it, we'd be in for $28,569. So in this example, financially, it makes the most sense to just buy it from the beginning. Now we're gonna do another example, because this is what most people do, where we do not buy the car out of the lease, we actually trade it in. So we'll go through the numbers on this right now. So on the buy side, we're into the car for $26,552. The resale value of the car is $18,335. So we're going to subtract that from the all-in cost. So we get to $8,272. So the cost to drive this car for 3 years was a little over $8,000. Now on the lease side, we're all in for the total of the monthly payments, which is $300 times 36, plus our down payment, which is $2,000, which gives us an all-in cost of $12,800. So if we're turning in the car, you can see that leasing the car was way more expensive than buying it. But something you do here, again, is that monthly payment. Yeah, but the monthly payment was $300 compared to the $682. Something that's really important for all of us to consider is don't buy things based on a monthly payment. We should buy things based on one, what we can afford, and two, the total cost of purchasing something. In this example was $4,000 extra that we have to pay over the 3-year window, which is a greater expense than the difference between the $300 and the $682. So this is what I did over the last 20 years, kind of break down my process and what I went through. One, in the beginning, I didn't want a monthly payment. I was trying to save as much money as I could so that I could invest that money. I was in kind of, accumulation mode. So I bought a cheap Honda Civic. I drove that for 10 years. I had no monthly payment. It was great. Until I got to the point of getting married and having kids, and my wife no longer wanted me to have that car. She didn't feel like it was a safe option for the kids. And I will give it to her, Honda Civics aren't the safest car. So that's when I moved into the Prius. When I bought the Prius, I bought it new and I financed it. I ended up paying off the loan and then owned it for years after the loan was paid off. Financially speaking, it would have been better, in my perspective, to buy a car that was probably 2 years old, so you let it get through that massive depreciation. Then, if you want to finance it and own it beyond the loan, or buy it out in cash if you can. Now, if we're removing the financial aspect of this, what makes sense financially? One thing I will say is if you go through cars fast, right? You're just like, hey, look, dude, I'm not going to own a car for multiple years after the loan. I get through these things every 5 years. If that's you, then yeah, probably leasing makes more sense. It actually happened to me. As I got older, I stopped wanting cars for so long. And so you're taking a hit financially. It's not the most financially sound move, but if that's kind of not your desire and you're just running through these things, then yeah, that's an option. One thing I want to leave kind of the group with is this one. When you start looking at cars, you'll stretch what you can afford. It's really easy to convince ourselves that we want to be into something nice. What I will say is constantly remind yourself of what the goal is. If our goal is this freedom path, right? The way we really get to freedom is when we own enough assets where the assets pay us cash flow that then can pay for these things like cars, right? Remind yourself of that so that it helps you create the discipline to say no to an expensive car now so that you can put more money into investments that will eventually get you to the point where it doesn't matter. You can almost drive whatever you want because you're not coming out of your earned income to pay for it. I hope this video helps. I hope for the next cars we all go and buy, we can do it from a more efficient standpoint. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next video.